saddle again.
At KSMO Radio, time for Sit Down with Darrell Skiles from South Central Regional Stockyards. Good to have you along, my friend.
Good morning, Stan. It's great to be here.
I was glad to have you here.
Nice.
Better than Five Below.
Nice. Oh my gosh, I tell you, it is. It's a little muddy out there. I was talking to somebody last night, and again this morning. That the challenge feeding cattle now is trying to get through the mud, and because it got so cold. Here, last Friday it was 7 degrees. That's what I had. I keep track of it. And then a week ago tomorrow it was 0. A few days before that it was in the minus 5, 6, 7, and -8.
And wind chills -20.
Oh, wind and yeah. So here we are now. This week we've had ice. We had the ice storm that made things pretty treacherous. I tell you, it's been an interesting month of January trying to market cattle. But at any rate, temperatures are warming up. The cattle market's heating up, and it's going to be pretty nice out there. 40-some degrees today with
and 50s by next week.
Sun in the 50s, almost 60 degrees maybe by the end of next week. It sounds like perhaps. So anyway,
some areas in the last week, Darrell, have got 4 inches of rain. We are here in Salem, a little over 3.
Yeah.
That's right? A lot of rain.
We didn't at my house, and I'm on out west out there, what I call out in the Great Desert part of Dent County. But we got about 2.5 inches.
But I mean, it's still a pretty large amount for January. Usually, you don't get that much rain in January, and
that's right.
And we have a few years back, we got like 5.5, 6 inches of rain in January, and it looks like we're not going to get any more after this possible Saturday morning. But then, my goodness gracious! So when you start out the first week and a half in January, we didn't have any. Didn't have anything.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, we've got ample moisture on the ground.
On the ground.
But it can't go anywhere.
Until it gets thawed out underneath it, which makes it just slimy and slick on top.
Right.
But the ponds and the creeks needed the rain.
They did.
A lot of our producers across the South Central Regional Stockyards area are very happy to even having to put up with the mud to get a little bit extra water in some ponds. Some ponds were desperate. So anyway, but for marketing, we just, I tell you, for January, we've been about shut down. And across the state, really, it's been... and you can look at market reports, and really not much was going on. When north and west of us, the bulk of those cattle that we sell are going to go north and west, up in the feedlot country and into Kansas. And when they're shut down because of weather with blizzards, I know a gentleman was actually out in Kansas shipping cattle, and they got 7 or 8 loads of cattle on trucks headed to some feedlots in Nebraska, and they got shut down. The interstate and the highways got shut down before they could get there, and they had to unload the cattle at another facility and keep and that's several head of cattle. But that happens, and so when it comes to marketing, well, then that kind of messes you up. You may be fine where we're at here, may be fine as far as getting cattle in, but we can't. We're not doing people a good service when we encourage them to bring cattle in when our people that are going to be buying them are basically shut down and not wanting any cattle. We can get rid of them. Don't get me wrong, but that's not the point. We want to help people market their cattle and get the most value they can.
It's at one bit of maximum price if you don't have any competition.
So anyway, it's been a challenging month this last week. Though we did have a very, very good sale this past Wednesday. It was a challenge getting some cattle out.
A few people still had some slick spots.
Let me tell you, there Tuesday it was still extremely slick in places. As a matter of fact, I could show you a picture of the fellow had one of the stockyards trucks and trailers was jackknifed around, and by the time he got to stop, the boy could reach out the driver's window and flip the switches on the lights on the neck of the gooseneck trailer. It didn't get into the truck, but boy, it got close. And that was on Gravel County Road, and it just got away. But we got a lot of cattle out. We had about 1,600 head. This past week, and a lot of markets really across the state this past week would have been really the first decent week they've had for marketing cattle. And even then, down southwest Missouri, they were looking for a big run on Monday, and then it got shut down because of the rain, ice and storm and stuff. But prices overall very good. Cattle futures right now are a good bit higher than what they have been, especially here later in the week they picked up. We had a cattle on feed report come out last Friday, and really didn't weigh heavily on the market. I don't think much one way or the other. I don't think there were any big surprises in it. But overall, we've been working through some higher numbers of cattle that were placed on feed back in the fall last year in 23 for various reasons. Cattle prices encourage people to move cattle sooner than earlier, but also the drought that was going on then and
right.
is still going on. We're not out of this drought situation by any means.
Yeah,
necessarily.
that past week is not indicative of what we had for the last 4 months.
No, or a year or two.
Yeah.
Actually, this is kind of an ongoing thing for the last couple of years. So, but because of the numbers and everything going on and things, why the cattle futures picked up. Actually, cattle futures yesterday for going out for March futures for cattle feeders were up over $4 a hundred just for the month of March. Just yesterday jumped up that much. So when we're looking, and we talk about cattle futures all the time and think, well, that's speculating. Well, it is and it isn't. But cattle futures kind of drive the cash market, but and then you turn around, the cash market will drive the futures then too. It's kind of a back and forth, but basically when the cattle futures are jumping up like that, there's then the optimism and speculation is of taking into account of all the numbers and the lots and what's coming out and what's not and so forth. So the prospect looks very good. These cattle futures yesterday ended up a little over $238 a hundred weight.
Wow.
So that's gaining back almost $30 a hundred just in the last month and a half from what it was. They'd really gone down. We were sitting in those 230 and 240s and up around 250 for a while this past summer and fall, and then things started running sideways with us, and we ended up back down around 210 for a while. Well, now it's turned around and bounced back, and I think we're on a good track here with these futures, and the cash markets is reflecting that. So you look out on the futures, we're looking at feeder futures at 249, looking at May, and you get on out even up to $2.68 a pound going on out to November of 24. So obviously the speculation is there. That's taken into account, again, cattle numbers and demand. There's great demand. The box beef values on these choice cuts is getting up there around $300 a hundred. So for the packers, that's what they're going to be selling it at, and so that seems like that's been like a bit of a plateau that could quite get over and get there, but I think we're there, and it's just a reflection of demand for the product. And the fact of the matter is, if you look in your kitchen drawer, do you have a bunch of these really nice sharp chicken knives? No, they're steak knives.
Not many.
Yeah, no, they're steak knives. They're not chicken thigh knives, and they're not chicken breast knives.
Not
they're
even pork chop knives.
That's right. You don't have pork chop or sausage knives.
Yeah.
They're steak knives, and we can laugh about it. But the fact is, beef is people. You know what? If people have got some a little money to spend and they want to have a good meal, go out, have a good meal, beef is still king, and you just cannot beat that good, juicy
No, you can't.
Sirloin steak. Matter of fact, last night I had some leftover roast that was about as good as anything you could.
And roasts are fantastic this time of year.
That's right.
I mean, absolutely, and they're long lasting.
Yes, sir.
Matter of fact, I had a 3/4 inch ribeye that we had cooked up, and I had that the other day, and I found, well, actually, my better half found a lobster tail that I had stored away in the freezer. I didn't even know that. And she put it out there, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to have me a feast tonight.
So, I mean to tell you, steak and lobster tail. Whoa.
So and I don't know how long that lobster tail's been in there, but it was perfect. It did not freezer burn.
Hats off to your better half taking care of you.
Yeah, well, I think she was cleaning out the freezer. But anyway, nonetheless, but Daryl, sometimes, you get that opportunity just to splurge every now and then, and that's great, and enjoy it, and savor it when you're eating it, because, we all can't afford to do that every single day, but when you get the opportunity and you get a good price, you can get that steak. And I always love and people love fillets, and I understand that. But you pay for that, and if you're going to eat that fillet, take your time, enjoy it, and savor it, because every bite is fantastic.
And you may not be able to afford that good steak, but I tell you what, good hamburger, and you can buy a good hamburger, and there's a lot of different places. You can go to the various slaughter meat market and places here that slaughter and sell meat, good farm-raised meat, good hamburger. Personally, I love a good steak, but you can a real good chopped steak, what I call a chopped steak, made out of really good top quality hamburger
You bet.
that is cooked right, you know what? That's hard to beat. Get some mashed potato gravy and thing. Of course, I can just about eat a rock if you got gravy on it. But I do love a chopped steak. You know,
I don't know what your teeth are made of, but I can't eat it. Right.
Well, I can't eat it. I'll chew on it.
You'll lick the gravy off.
Suck the gravy off. I'll just spit the rocks out. But anyway, you know, I mean, still, you know, and really, that's not any more expensive, hardly really, than any of the other kinds.
No.
I'd rather have a chopped steak than the best cut of chicken, for heaven's sake, or pork either, for that matter. And I like pork chops. You know, my favorite cut of a hog is the sausage and the bacon. And beyond that, pork steak. Oh, I better back up. I'm going to tell you now, there ain't anything much hardly beats a good pork steak slapped on the grill and things,
true.
other than maybe a good sirloin or good T-bone.
Pork loin, I really love pork loin. I really do. And
but anyway,
the way my mama made it, you couldn't beat it.
I think we got off on a rabbit trail here.
I think we did. But
the point is,
we're going to get right back and get behind that steer again.
Yeah. It was behind a bunch of them Wednesday, but at any rate, the market's good. And we're back in business now after all the weather delays and the weather problems. Had a very good run, as I said, this past week, and had a little over 1,600 head. And really, as I said, probably all across the country, probably the first real chance to get back into cattle marketing. And all across the regions, the sale barns, you know, they didn't have much to compare to earlier in the month, but when you would compare to where we were at, even going back to December, most all the markets, and ours included, would have called cattle probably, depending on the weight and so forth and so on. You know, it's always hard, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, but we'd have been anyway 5, 10, 15, up to even maybe $20 higher on some of these classes of cattle. It's just the market's real good. We've had, and of course, you know, we have our sale at South Central Regional Stockyards. We are hooked up with DV Auction, and a person can go online and look the sale up on DV Auction. You can get registered to buy cattle on the DV Auction. We sell a number of cattle many times on DV Auction. We had a lot of buyer interest and we do every sale, a lot of buyer interest on DV Auction. Had many on the internet viewing the sale and watching and looking to buy, but to
Especially
be honest,
with that weather we had, I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, and that comes into play. A buyer that can't get there will can sit at home, pull it up, and you know what's interesting? Sometimes they'll pull up and they'll see the cattle selling and what you know, and the quality that's there, and so they'll actually call us. Sometimes they'll call a buyer that's sitting there live on the seats, because there still is nothing like that buyer sitting there live, looking. And you know, if there's something an odd that needs to be pulled off, they can spot it and see. You know. If they're going to pay the top prices, they don't want to buy one, you know, with a flop ear or a blind eye or bad foot. And we try very hard to spot those and sort those off back before they ever get to the ring, because if you're going to maintain that integrity of the cattle coming in the ring to be what they are presented to be, right, whether you're sitting there live or on the internet, why it's important to do that. And I think we've got a pretty good reputation for honestly presenting all the cattle then and not trying to let something we don't intentionally try to let anything slip in there that simply wouldn't fit the rest of the group.
Wouldn't fit the quality standards you have.
Yep, and you know, and it shows up in the prices. So at any rate, so we had a lot of buyer interest on the internet, but most of them got smoked out by the live buyers that were sitting there as far as the prices, because they were just getting along very well and willing to step in and bid up a lot of really good quality cattle. Again, when we're talking about these higher prices, the biggest increases in prices and gain would be in these weaned, which there's lots of them now. Most of the spring calves have been weaned quite a while. A few still coming to town that haven't been weaned, and even them are bringing some good prices. We'll get into some of those. But the biggest increases in prices will be on those cattle been weaned and been vaccinated, and they're what we call value added. And we've talked about that enough. Value added is money in the bank, basically. If you're in a position where you can wean the cattle, get the vaccinations in them, all the respiratory vaccinations along with the modified live, as we've talked about, very important that the cattle have a modified live booster, vaccinations and boosters. It'll put dollars in your pocket. And slaughter cows and bulls are higher as well, and we'll get into that. But just to give folks kind of an idea, and also I do want to mention we've got a special feeder calf and yearling special lined up for this coming week. Okay. Probably even bigger than what we had this past week. I expect we'll probably have 2,000, 2,500 head, maybe more. We've got a lot of really of cattle carrying fantastic quality health and genetics packages from some of the area's top producers, some large strings that we'll be getting in, and some of them may be coming in this weekend, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning. And going to have some really good cattle, and looking forward to that. And but at any rate, for this, just to give folks an idea, this past week, and I'm just looking here, you see I've got the market report put out by Missouri Department of Agriculture and the USDA Market News Service. About 1,600 head. And to give you an idea, in their report on these medium and large number one calves, had quite a bunch of cattle weighing in that 450 to 500 pound range. Is averaging about 478. We was looking at a price of about $312.87 a hundred. That's about $1,495 a head. Pretty good ticket, and that would have been some some run of the mill, about 70 head of cattle altogether. They're kind of in that weight range. But we get on down here, we talk about value added. We was looking at 14 head of steers here, and and we talk about this, and people want to say, well, I don't have a pot load, so I don't ever have a chance to get those, them good. You don't have to have a pot load necessarily to get those really good prices. I'm looking here at 14 head of calves that weighed 568. 14 head, not even a gooseneck load, let alone a pot. 14 head of steers weighing 568 at $2.81 a pound. Now, those were value added. They had all the shots,
everything ready,
had the boosters, but that's almost $1,600 a head, $1,596 a head. These are some, probably some short yearlings. And I say short yearlings, I mean that in age. I don't mean they were short in stature.
They were mini cows.
Yeah. I said that one time in a deal, and somebody said, well, what was tall yearlings bringing? Well, I said, what? Well, okay. When we're talking age, we'll talk about short yearlings and long yearlings and things, but that has nothing to do with stature. Okay.
Terminology, Daryl.
Yeah,
Terminology.
Yeah. So anyway, and then and again here we had had quite a few cattle though that was weighing in that 750 to almost 800 pound range, but these cattle averaging 771 pounds were 222.57 on an average price on those cattle. Weighing 771, that's $1,715 a head. So that's some pretty good price. But again, these are on your medium and large frame number one calves, mostly black baldy, most likely on all those. It doesn't indicate color, but in about any sale, the very top end calves will be in those outstanding black and black baldies, and we had lots of them. The heifers you're looking at, just to give folks an idea, had again about 13. Some heifers weighing 405 to about 440 in a range of 275 to 287. So again, very good prices.
Yeah.
We get on down here then into the 5 weights. Had these cattle weighing about 520 to about 550, bringing an average of 252. Had a range of $2.41 to $2.61 a pound on those cattle weighing in the low to mid 5s. Get on down here again. When we talk about value added. Folks, here's just 4 head here, but they were 613 pound, very nice heifers, value added with all the shots, boosters, and everything, weighing 613 at $2.41 a pound. That's $1,477, just under $1,500 a head. So, again, that it all adds up. Those things that you do, and again, we've got buyers sitting there that are buying these and putting their loads together, and the value added makes a difference.
Absolutely.
And whether you've got a pot load or whether you got 4, it will add up and make a difference. So it's a very good market. We look for, and as I said, the futures this week have I don't know what futures are doing today. I haven't seen, but the trend on the futures is higher. The numbers are good. When you look at what's going on as far as in the packing plants, one of the things that had been happening was the slaughter weights had increased to near record levels because of the cat and the numbers and things. It was a deal where the packers kind of slowed the chains down a little bit, and the feeders were keeping the cattle longer because actually while they were gaining, they were just making money every day while they were gaining.
Sure.
So, but this past week, or actually a couple of weeks ago, the report I heard this morning was that the average slaughter weight was down about 10 pounds from what it had been the week in the previous report. Well, 10 pounds may not sound like much, but when you multiply that out over the number of cattle going through the packing plants, 10 pounds, it amounts to, and it's all a numbers deal and tonnage, it amounts to a lot of pounds. Now, we were at record weights, so, and with all the cold we've had, that that slaughter weight's probably going to get pulled down some more, which turns around and reduces the amount of tonnage, which is just that much less meat then going in the supply. And
That's right.
And we're going to work through this numbers thing that we had show up here this past fall in the lots and going to slaughter. So everything looks very good. We'll have a report coming out here before very long on the January 1st total cattle inventory, which will take into account all cows and calves out there in the farms and fields. And I think the expectation is, and I believe that's a very accurate expectation, that total cattle inventory is going to be down from what it was a year ago. We know that we slaughtered a lot of cows this past year that, were it not for the drought, would have been going back home.
Right.
And having calves and things last fall, we know we sold a lot of bred cows that went to slaughter this past summer.
Yeah.
That in a normal year without drought and things, people just can't realize. We got dry here, but I'm going to tell you, in major parts of our South Central Regional Stockyards trade area, it was brutal dry, way worse than we were here. Back in July, I actually bought an older portable head chute and working chute from a fella up by Iberia, and I thought we were dry. And mercy sakes, boy, I felt much better once I got back home from up there, because it was just horrible. Where they had cut hay, that pasture, it looked like a concrete floor all across those ridges and fields and things, and they were just hurting bad, and all across the country up there, major parts. And we got dry, but like I said, across major parts of our trade territory is much worse even than we were, which was bad enough. So a lot of cows, and that isn't just ours; it's across Missouri and across the major cattle producing areas.
Kansas, Iowa, all
Texas.
of them.
Texas was brutal. Texas,
moved.
lots of cows moved out, and we're really pretty much second only to Texas in cow numbers, which is amazing, and So we expect that numbers, and I think the trade is taking that into account. The numbers is probably going to be down, and when that cow herd number is down, it takes a while to build that thing back up.
Sure.
And from all accounts, it looks like from the numbers we see going in the feedlots and things that the expansion or heifer keeping thing really hasn't took off yet. People, just like for this year, most folks have been more interested in just trying to get through the winter with the hay supply they got and the water supply situation. So I don't think there's a big heifer retention thing going on. Once that starts, well, then that actually reduces the amount of calves going to the feed or going to lots, going to slaughter. Wow. So all indications are that we're going to be in a pretty good position for being able to sell cattle at a much better price than what we were a couple of years ago.
Well, and as you mentioned,
it needs to be with cost the way they are, but at any rate.
But as you mentioned, with the futures prices going up, and a lot of that is driven from the availability of what they're going to see,
Sure.
because they're looking at the future. And as you mentioned, a lot of these heifers went to slaughter back in the fall. They had to. There was no way of keeping them grazing.
Right.
So that
Nothing to
reduces
graze.
the amount of calves you're going to have in the upcoming year, and that's driving the price too. And they know that. That's
Right.
what the futures is all about. They see what those trends are. They know what happened back in the fall, and they're anticipating a higher demand on beef. Going to be a higher price to get it because there's just not as much there to draw from.
Right. Yep. It's all a numbers deal, and so right now we're in the best position we've been in years and years as far as the numbers outlook and the outlook for going forward here. If you're in a position, to have grass and cattle, let's face it, if you're going to have cattle, then you need grass and you need water, feed. You need grass for feed and you need water for them to drink. If you're short of grass, you can move cattle around and find grass on. If you're short of water, hurting for water, that's a whole nother proposition, and that's a difficult deal. But there's been a lot of waterers put in over the years and things to help alleviate that. Of course, I had some cattle running on some waterers that run off of a well, and when I hear an ice storm's coming in, I start getting nervous, holding my breath, because if the well quits, then the water's quit, and if that happens, then you better have a backup plan where they're going to drink if you're well. And I had a backup plan on both instances stuff, but at any rate, the numbers thing looks good. I think we're in a good position here for the next few years on this thing if a person is careful with what they do and what can have feed. I do want to mention, also in the market though right now, these cows, again, these slaughter cows and slaughter bulls picked up this past week. On the cows, these average and high dressing cows, we would have been looking at the bulk of the old whey cows would have been in the upper 90s, up to $1.08, $1.89 on big cows go to slaughter. Even the smaller, leaner cows, older, leaner cows would have been somewhere in the mid 70s. And so, if you're talking about even an old Shelly old cow that's, I call them a last calf heifer, she weighs 1,000 pounds and she just needs to go, well, she'll bring 750, 800, 850 bucks or so. That's pretty good change to put in your pocket and let her go and save those resources that she would have been eating for those younger producing cows.
Well, you got to regenerate.
Yeah, but on them big cows, you're going to generate a lot of dollars on some of them big 1,300 pound, 1,400 pound cows. They'll bring $1, $5, $6, $8. Yeah. And then the same way on the slaughter bulls. The slaughter bull market, as we've talked about before, has been very good. And again, that's just a reflection of the meat market, because that's what they're going in. They're going right there into that meat market. And for your average and high dressing bulls weighing 1,400 to about 2,100 pounds, they would have been in a range of $1.02, $3, $4 to $1.20, $1.21 or so. So again, that's a lot of dollars. A big old bull. It's not hard at all to not uncommon at all to see a big old bull bearing $2,000 to $2,500 or more. I've got an old bull that's an older bull. It's great big and served you well, but you got some heifers out of him. It's an awful good time to move him and buy some good quality replacement bulls. But really, when you get to looking at it, some of these younger replacement bulls from some of our more reputable breeders are probably bargains right now compared to what the slaughter price is on these big cattle. You don't have to put that much more with that slaughter price to buy a really good bull that will improve your herd and make you money down the road. So
does the USDA, I mean, they put out obviously weekly reports and things like that, but do they have maybe quarterly reports or semi-annual reports on the demand in tonnage for beef, and that you can see or see how the trends are going? Because especially I would like to see regional wise, because I know Midwest still beef, meat and potatoes. That's the meat and potatoes people. I always call it Central United States is meat and potatoes, but the East Coast and West Coast, they're kale people. Yeah. Right. and I would like to see, but then you hear all this demand for beef everywhere.
Yeah.
And okay, if they're all eating kale, they're sure not eating beef, but I bet you they're not eating just kale.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to see if they have a tonnage report to just see how those areas are being supplied. I'm sure they do.
I'm sure they do, and I'm sure you can go on the USDA websites and scour down through there and mine some of those figures and information like that and stuff that's there. But I mean, we know the demand is very good right now. And has been here for some time. We've been through all kinds of deals where they've tried to bash on beef, and build this up and stuff. And there's been some fads and this and that. And you know what? And after a while, people went, geez, they're just sick of that, and they go back and want a good steak, want a good hamburger. Well, you know what? The hamburger chains, look at the drive.
Continue to grow.
Watch the drive-through at any of your major, your fast food deals, and they're moving a lot of product. And some of them will come out with a veggie burger, and I went in one of them here one day, and they asked if I would want their new veggie burger, and they called it an Impossible Meat Burger or something. And I said, "Is that thing even legal? Are you sure?" Good grief! I mean, what in the world are you doing trying to sell that piece of garbage? And so there's always all that stuff, but in the end, people finally realize, you know what? We have got the best, safest, most wholesome food supply really in the world, and beef. You can't beat the quality and the quality of the meat that we're putting out there these days. Whether you're talking beef, pork, or chicken, even for that matter, but beef is by far the best, folks. Don't get me wrong. But anyway,
that's not a biased opinion at all.
No, that's totally unbiased. That is just nothing more than professional, thoroughly researched on my part. Anyway, but you just can't. People know they just can't beat having beef on the menu, whether they're at home or whether they go out or go through the drive-through or the quick eatery or your top end restaurants. And some of your top end restaurants will proudly point out how that they proudly serve You're talking about certified Angus beef,
Right.
certified black Angus.
Yep.
Some of them will proudly serve certified Hereford, and there's certified Red Angus programs out there as well.
That's right.
They're all top quality. If you pull in one of them places and you see that they serve those, you can be guaranteed that you're getting a top quality eating product and a top quality eating experience, and that's why that's why that demand's there. But I'm sure USDA somewhere in some of their sites has got some of that different information that folks can dig out. Sometime I may have one of our university folks come on here with us and tell them, see if they can maybe mine some of that information out to share with us.
I just think it'd be interesting to see because when you start talking about Texas being number one in cattle production and Missouri being number two, obviously that means a lot of our product, as you're mentioning, that just through South Central Regional Stockyards, is going to Nebraska, going to Kansas, maybe even Colorado, maybe even Iowa. And where
Lots
does
of them to go to Iowa,
right? And so where does that go from that chain? When they're slaughtered and sent out, where are they distributing that to? And who knows? But it would be it would be really interesting to see just how much of the demand is in the different locations of the United States. I really like to see it.
There's a big new packing plant being built right now up in what is that, St. Charles County?
I think it's Warren. I think it's just outside St. Charles County. I think it's in Warren County.
Big packing plant up there that's going to butcher mainly cows, these slaughter cows, which is going to be a real plus for us to have a large cow processing facility here in Missouri, because we're second in the nation in cow numbers, and so just by the nature of the business, you're going to have a certain number of cull cows and weigh cows that need to go to be processed, and if they can just be bought and trucked a couple of hundred miles, why that's good for everybody. And my hat's off to the state for working with that company and so on. We can visit maybe sometime more with Ron Copeland about how some of those things work on the state deal and what the legislature does to try to help encourage these things. Because we do have a legislature. We've had a governor for the last few years who's very supportive, of course, of agriculture. He's an ag producer and farm boy, and we've been very fortunate. And agriculture is the number one industry in the state of Missouri.
It is.
And within agriculture, beef makes up the largest segment of that. But not to snub our nose at the grain and corn and soybean producers. It all works together to make up a very vibrant ag economy in this state, and so any of those things that we can do to support that ag economy is a real plus. I'm tickled to see they're focusing again back. Getting a little more focused again on, they talked about a lot of money they're going to spend to improve Interstate 70 from St. Louis to Kansas City. It's a major deal, but they're realizing and mentioning now a little bit more about Interstate 44 needs expansion wide. If you travel Interstate 44 from Springfield to Rolla, I try to avoid it myself. We'll take the southern route if we can at all. But I mean, it's a major freight route from going across all the way from St. Louis to Joplin and on, going that part of the country. I was trying to think that the representative from over at St. Robert, who's has pushed very hard, and I know our rep Ron Copeland has as well. But there's a lot of interest now, and I've been hearing that on the news where they're going to try to make that a part of the emphasis too, that for MoDOT to work on as they move forward and try to get the federal money to help make that work. So
they've just got federal money to help with the 70 project, so they've just got some of that, and it's going to take a while. They have a scoping committee they're putting together for 44. And that's going to be, and they may reroute part of 44 to get away from some of those dangerous hills.
Mayhew. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Representative Don Mayhew from over at...
and trying to buy right away anymore for those major interstates, and as big as these interstates are getting.
Yep.
That's going to take some major dollars, and I understand trying to get away from some of those hills, but I don't know if they can get away from all of those. That one by Piney Creek coming up the hill, which every time there's an ice storm, just becomes a parking lot.
Oh my gosh!
You can't get up that hill, and there's no way you can get up that hill. Well, now they're talking about, this is unofficial, obviously. So, but you hear people talking about that they'd actually bypass that and try and keep it lower. Well, how much lower can you go? I mean, there's not a lot of plateau out there. I mean, it comes right from that that river valley, it goes straight up.
Right.
And I don't know how far you're going to have to deviate to get around that. I don't know, Daryl. And I haven't really looked at a plateau map to see what areas might be available.
That's a tough one to fix, because also part of their other problem there is that the lower part of that, before you ever go up the hill, the lower part of it, every once in a great while gets flooded and closing the whole highway because of the Gasconade that the Little Piney runs into the Gasconade right there at Jerome, and then that floods that whole valley.
It's not where the bridge is. It's down the lower end where it bottoms out.
Yeah, the bridge is up fairly high on down towards the D Highway junction down there is where it runs into trouble. And I've seen the estimates on what it was going to cost to actually raise the highway enough to keep that flooding event from happening, and that's a daunting challenge. But at any rate, at least the state is on it, and they're looking at it, and they'll try to do something. I know Representative Don Mayhew serves on a transportation committee at Jeff City, and he's all over it, wanting to get work done. Matter of fact, he introduced, I guess, a bill this year to actually change the name of I-70 to I-44 and I-44 to I-70, so that maybe that I don't know. It's kind of a funny deal, and it's not going to happen, but it garnered attention, and he got a lot of attention. Then turned around and folks, why he done that was because of the fact that I-44 wasn't probably getting all the attention it deserved on needed improvements for freight traffic and so on. So,
and as you just pointed out, the traffic on both of them is substantial and almost identical.
Yeah.
When you look at the number, the more trucks use 70 than 44, but only like by about 3%. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be more 70 than anything else.
Yeah.
But 44 has continued, and they draw a lot of from Texas all the way to California as they're coming up that way.
Sure.
And not through 70 because they can't get through Colorado. Colorado's the big problem with 70 because you get up into the climate change, and you got problems up in the mountains, especially this time of year.
The
so they
elevation
come
change,
south.
yep.
Everybody comes south. So when they did that study, that was probably about 10 years ago, and I might be wrong, might even be longer than that, but they found that where 70 used to have the truck traffic that came out of St. Louis, which was a major truck hub, and so was Kansas City. A lot of that was also livestock cattle going between the two stockyards from East St. Louis to Kansas City, and they were trading cattle and trading other commodities that way. It was like 75%, 25%, and that was back in the 60s and 70s, and and 44 has just continued to rise.
Yeah.
So, it used to be and it was old 66 for a long time. It was not a very good truck route to go, and so that was probably one of the reasons why you didn't have as much truck traffic there, but old 40 that used to go through the middle part of the state, and that, of course, they converted part of that to 70, wasn't as bad. But when 70 came through, that was like a godsend because it was mostly flat. You had easy truck traffic. It was easy to go from St. Louis, Kansas City, the two major hubs, and so that truck traffic was. And St. Louis was such a big union truck capital at the time when back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, you went down Broadway, you had a trucking company every 25 feet, and they were all busy, every one of them. Well, times have changed. You still have a lot of trucking companies in St. Louis, but nothing like what they used to have.
The bulk of the cattle we'll send out from South Central stockyards will go north. They'll go north and go west. Most of our cattle are going to go from our big feeder sales are going to head north and northwest, go to Iowa, many to Nebraska, and some to Kansas things. It's depending on the time of year. Sometime as we get on into the spring here, we'll have a lot of cattle going into Kansas to the blue stem, Flint Hills blue stem pastures. If you've never been out in Kansas in the spring of the year when it's coming back, flowers are blooming in that Flint Hills region, that is a beautiful, beautiful part of the state, and many folks may not realize just what an impact that area of the country has on cattle prices for especially for our cattle, yearling cattle and things to go out there to be grazed and then come off later to go to the feedlots. I mean, that blue stem pasture will put gain on cattle just unbelievably. It's almost like they're in a feedlot eating grain.
Wow.
It's incredible. A beautiful, beautiful country. And if you sometimes you've got a couple of 3 days in the spring with nothing to do, I drive on out there and take kind of a drive out there in east central Kansas and drive down through the Flint Hills region and enjoy it. And it's a beautiful country, great cattle country, and a lot of great cattle producers, a lot of great great cattle backgrounders and things out in that country, and
Sometimes you
big,
need
big ranches and things.
right.
You know.
Sometimes you need to get off the interstate and see some
Oh,
of
you
that
got to
stuff,
get off the
you know,
interstate. When you go, if you go to Colorado on Interstate 70, you're just really almost shortchanging yourself a little bit. When we go to Colorado, I love to go out on Highway 50 myself, and because really, if you go out on 50, you're just kind of driving right through the backyards of some of these farms and ranches and things, and you'll really see the country a lot better. Or even better, you can swing on south and go through Arkansas City and Cottonwood Falls and out through that country out there and really see some beautiful country as well. Take your time and enjoy the trip. You know, I've had people say, "Oh, they hate the drive to Colorado." I love the drive to Colorado myself, but I'm just a dumb old cowboy kind of at heart, so I kind of like seeing that cow country, and I like seeing the farm country too. But at any rate,
I like to see the little towns and what's happening
That's
to
right.
those little towns, because when the interstates came in, it killed a lot of them.
Yep, and when you take those side highways like that, you know what? You got them little towns and the little mom and pop restaurants and convenience stores every 10 or 15 miles, and hey, makes the trip pretty enjoyable. If you could take 70 all the way, I figure that's for the trucks, and they want to race along at 80 miles an hour, and that's fine. But anyway, but our cattle are going to go to a lot of them. We'll send some to Illinois too. You know, we got a lot of good farmer feeders all across the country that like to feed cattle, and they like to market their corn through cattle, and they do a great job. So at any rate, but we have got a great sale lined up for this coming week. And for the next few weeks, I think we'll be having some really good sales. You know, weather permitting. But this week, weather's going to permit. It's going to be pretty muddy. We've got some cattle that wanted to come this coming week that they're probably not going to be able to get them out. They've got some of them have got to cross some hay fields and some things that are going to be just pretty
soft,
tough. Pretty doggone tough. If they haven't got some pens somewhere close to some roads or hard ground to get out, it may be a challenge. But anyway, there's nothing like having a load of cattle on and being stuck. Been a while since I've been in that position, and I hope to avoid it for quite a while longer too. But at any rate,
that sale's Wednesday.
Our sale is every Wednesday. We start selling feeder cattle at noon. Start off selling on any baby calves and things like that have come in, then get right on into the feeder calves, and then we'll finish up when we're done the feeder calves. Finish up with the weigh cows, replacement cows, and then the weigh cows and the weigh bulls and things. So again, we've got a good sale lined up for this week, and look for 2,500 head. If anybody's thinking about moving some cattle and they can get them out, this would be a good week to do it. The futures are up. The feeder market, cash markets are higher. If they have any questions, if they want to talk about moving some cattle, give me a call. My number is 573-308-5415, or give the barn a call and ask to talk to Dave Ross or Bill Patton. That's the owners of the barn at Vienna, and they'll be happy to visit with anybody about their cattle, or what their options might be, or what they ought to do, and if they need to come down here and get with them and go take a look at their stock and see what's going on or what they might want to do. We'll try to make that work. And anyway, and the number at South Central Stockyards, of course, is 573-422-3305. And that's 573-422-3305, or they can call me anytime, 573-308-5415. 308-5415. That's my cell number. Leave me a message if I don't answer, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Promise you that. Try not to forget anybody at all. And
but sometimes you're in an area you can't get cell service.
You know, these cell phones are kind of funny. You know, once in a while, I'll get a message from a day or so, or a day or two, pop up that was left a day or two beforehand, and I'm not figured out what that deal is with that, and that's really frustrating. But generally, they come through pretty quickly, depending on where we're at. But we do have some black holes.
Yes, we do
here, you know,
still,
and some valleys and things if the timing's right. You're talking about the highways. I know we've been watching and wondering what's going to happen, because it affects us at the stockyards, even as far as moving cattle. But from down on 19 here, we've got the Standing Rock Bridge on 19 South, and I know from some folks I visited with back earlier this week that there's going to be, it looks like they're going to come up with a much better option on replacing that bridge. It would be a little less problematic as far as
understanding
local
they're getting
traffic.
additional right away.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I thought needed to happen last year when we were talking about this. It didn't make sense, and that's what I shared with some of the MoDOT folks, that there's a simple answer to this thing, and that's buy the right of way you need to build a bridge, leave the old bridge intact till you get the new bridge built, and open it up, and on we go. That's the only only real answer. Can you imagine this past week or two had that bridge been closed down
and KK was your option,
and all this traffic, the truck traffic and everything going down Devil's Backbone, where the shoulder is non-existent. If you happen to slide on the ice off the pavement, then it's a long ways down to the. You might want to take your snorkeling outfit with you, wear a wetsuit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because you can end up in a river.
I don't know if you're up on 44 just to the east of St. James. It was the truck yard graveyard because there was like 9 trucks that were off, and they were all on the sides. I mean, they were on the road at all. They were way down off the road because of that ice, and they go down that little dip, and one tried to stop, and then that just affects everybody else. And all of a sudden, that was never
a viable plan to think he was going to divert traffic down Devil's Backbone. And can you imagine this past week traffic, even if they made it across Devil's Backbone, coming down the hill to Acres Ferry? I mean, you better have a great big, huge elastic rubber band down there at the ferry to catch those rigs and keep them from out of the river.
With this ice storm, it never would have stopped.
Crap. My gosh.
They'd have just plowed right through Kern River and gone right across the other side. But, and the funny part was, though, in that hearing, Daryl, they said they never drove it. They looked at a map and they found it. And I said, seriously, you guys never drove that route?
Yeah.
And you're going to recommend that as the detour?
Yeah. Well, anyway. Cooler heads and calmer minds have prevailed as that's the way the system works.
Give them credit. They opened it up to the public.
That's right. So,
and they got their feedback, what they wanted. And it did help them determine what they need to do.
Yeah, and we're glad of that and appreciate it. I know Representative Copeland visited with him at different times, and I know he's been on it. And the senators and reps from all over the area have been after MoDOT that no, you can't. You got to do better than this. And so anyway,
very good.
Glad to see that. And weather's warming up, the cattle market's heating up, and the ice is behind us hopefully now. But February, this is going to be a good week to market some cattle. February can bring anything. Some of the worst, biggest, heaviest snows I recall ever getting. Back several years ago, even going out, we had a huge rain hit I think it was on a Wednesday, on a Sunday. And
Saturday,
about 3 or 4 or 5 inches of rain. Maybe it was a Saturday. I think you're right. And then the rain, and pretty soon turned to snow, and it snowed, and it snowed, and it snowed. And H Highway, I know a lot of the H Highway was almost closed. It was down to 1 lane for several days. And that week, even with 4-wheel drive, Marianne and I could only get within about a half mile of our house, and we'd have to park the truck and walk in the rest of the way through the snow to get home. That was for nearly a week. That week, we haven't had anything like that. Now that was in mid to late February when that happened. February can hit you pretty hard. So if you're thinking about moving some calves, and this would be an awfully good week to do it if you're in a position where they can be loaded and gotten out. We'd love to take care of you, and we want to see folks make good money on their cattle and help you market them. There's a lot of places you can take your cattle and get rid of them. We want to help you market your cattle, and that's truly what we're in business to do. Very good. So
give those numbers one more time, Daryl.
Yep. The number at South Central Regional Stockyards is 573-422-3305, or you can call me anytime, 573-308-5415.
Very good. Yep. Daryl Skiles, South Central Regional Stockyards report for this Friday, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
We'll be back here, Lord willing, and
you're going to miss Groundhog Day next week.
We'll be back here February the 9th, if I've got my calculation
correct. You are correct, sir.
Yep, and so with the South Central Regional Stockyards livestock market and ag update. And I do hope folks learn a little bit. I hear lots of good comments from folks who catch the program and so on. So that's what I like to hear, and we'll have some special guests on again here sometime. And but until we're back here, I do hope everyone will be safe, happy, healthy, and God bless each and every one.
I'm back in the